in the meeting until and if Sarah arrives. And start with the administrative discussion, the topics on the agenda: land use permit, permit request for Bumblebee geocaching, Nagog Orchard Committee, new officers, Cooper Farm Basin, and then anything else. Does anybody have anything else to add to the administrative agenda? Amy, I guess probably should add a new member to that. Did maybe let's start there. Did the select board vote on Monday, or Andrew, you were there, right?
Yep. So last night the selectmen or select board voted to appoint Michael to the full member seat, and Julie was appointed to the associate member position.
Very good. Did anybody think to tell Michael that we had a meeting tonight?
Yes, I did. Ha!
Yeah, okay.
But I knew he was going to be here anyway because he's one of the Bentham people.
Sure.
But he's not sworn in anyway, which is maybe just as well.
Okay. Very good. So Amy, you want to run through the administrative items then, the land use permit request, Bumblebee geocaching?
Sure, and then we can do the minutes too. But yeah, actually the woman who wanted to do the geocache found out that there already was one there, and I guess you have to be a certain feet apart. So she is reconsidering. But you said the one out there is not maintained, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's on the hillside, and I only found out because one day I was doing a little invasives pulling, and I see these people on the side of the hill, and I'm like, "What are you guys doing over there?" And they were like, "Oh, geocaching." I was like, "Sure."
I didn't even realize they're still doing geocaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty big with the Girl Scouts right now.
Actually, someone had come into the Acton Conservation Commission to ask about setting up a real geocache course on one of our conservation lands. They basically got shut down. Hey, try Littleton. Actually, I said, hey, try Prouty. And the Nagog Orchard Committee was Sarah's thing, and I think new officers, if Sarah is going to make it, maybe we should push that to the end.
Yeah, in any case, I'd rather move new officers until Mike is able to participate in a vote.
Yeah. And I think
unless there's some important reason why we need new officers appointed today versus a couple of weeks from now.
No. And Diane Dickerson had also, when I was having all these discussions, reminded me or let me know that Kyle and Andrew, I think, are up in June and just need to reapply.
I've already submitted my paperwork.
Excellent.
You said Carl is up?
Nope, I said Kyle. Carl, you're not getting off.
Oh, I was
I'm going in
wondering.
there and I'm scratching out your retirement, your
like,
expiration date.
I was like, wow, that came fast.
Well, I must admit, I was cleaning out some files and I came upon your initial appointment, Carl. So from 97 or 98 or something, I think.
I don't know. I don't think about it. It's too many years. As long as I don't surpass Jim Pickard, I'll be okay.
Yeah, you got decades to go
fine.
before you're
Good. Otherwise you'll have to name a trail after me.
That can be done over at Mary Shepherd. We got a whole new one for you.
I'm not kidding.
That's right, Carl.
And you have to take care of it.
I was gonna say, you gotta build it first though.
Yeah, the one that you name it after you. The neighbors will be thrilled to know who it's named after. And come right after you.
Oh yeah, no, please.
With an address. The Cooper Farm Basins, let me show you. All right, where'd they go? I had them all set up. No, they're not there. Hang on a second. Oh, that's why. I want to look up the NOIs. This is below Basin 3 over at Cooper. So the basin, I'm kind of standing on the berm of the basin looking down what is a trail. And you can see the river is running through it. Parts of the trail are, basically fine and not eroding, but some parts are. So I'm not sure if we're going to set up any site walks at the end of the evening, but maybe we should plan on doing that one. I don't know if people have been able to get out there by themselves, but I think it's definitely worth a direct look.
Yeah, it might make sense to send something up. I know we've had it sort of on the agenda for people to do individually for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to be forced into it. I just keep forgetting to go out on my own. But if I put a date in my calendar, then then I'll be good. But
Was that a hose that they had going out of that? One of those.
I am not sure. I talked to Matt about this several months ago, and he said, "Oh no, it's supposed to function that way." I said, "No, it's not. But if it's supposed to function that way, then have Marky and Ruben go out there and look at it and say it is functioning the way it's supposed to, because it's not spilling. The basin, in one of those pictures, the basin was basically dry, but it was discharging through the pipe. So
one of those photos looked like there's a hose draining it.
No. It was the top part of that one was right below the culvert, so it had a little point discharge, if you will, right there.
All right.
When would we like to set up a sidewalk out there? This week, next week?
Whatever. We are meeting again next week because that's when we're finally making our switch to the first and third or wherever we are.
Amy, you want to? I think let's start with you, so we don't impinge upon your free time any more than we normally need to. Does a day this week, Wednesday or Thursday, work for you? Or next Monday, I guess.
My calendar wasn't working today, so I'm pretty sure I have something already set up for Thursday. Wednesday, I feel like I just set something up. Let me look at it and I'll get back to you before we get out of here. I know where I can find this. What was I going to do? Oh, I know I was going to do tomorrow. I don't have to do that. I was going to go over to Concord and look at their invasive species management area at their transfer station. So yeah, so tomorrow would work.
Tomorrow works for other folks. I don't know.
5:30, something like that.
I could probably do 5:30.
I can do 5:30.
yeah, I can't do any later than that. That would be a sweet spot.
But 5:30 is okay for you, Kyle.
Would
Any other objections to 5:30? Oh, Andrew.
Would 5:15 be better, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, 5:30 gives me a half hour to walk around and check it out. If we can meet earlier, that's great. I'm basically no earlier than 5, no later than 5:30 is my window, but don't schedule around me. Got a lot going on.
Evenings are a no-fly zone for me, but if you guys end up going tomorrow at 5:30, I'll make it out there myself.
So 5:30, yeah.
Would 5:15 be better for you, Andrew?
Oh, yeah, actually, yes, it would.
Let's do 5:15 then.
Oh, perfect.
5:15.
Where do we want to meet out there?
We can meet on Dean Lane and just walk across at the senior housing, the over 55 housing. And then I think the only thing was the minutes.
Oh, right, minutes. Any addition or correction to the minutes of April 12th, 2022?
It looks great.
Kyle, you good with them? You often have
Good.
notes.
Sorry. Yep.
You get a motion to approve the minutes then, please?
I move that we approve the minutes from April 12th, 2022.
Second.
Carl?
So I wasn't there, so what, I abstain?
You can, technically, you can vote on them too, but.
It's basically administrative, so you could vote on it.
Okay, all right. Should call my name?
Yep, Carl Melbourne.
Aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Chase was a guy.
And I didn't catch it. Who seconded that?
I think it was-
Andrew or I both said it, so
I say, do you remember?
write one down.
All right. Great.
I had one other thing to add to this. I got a phone call today about a tree that I guess had fallen sometime over the winter, I guess, on the Harvard Road side of Oak Hill. Fell from Oak Hill across into the property owner's lawn or something like that. Amy, how have we handled that in the past in terms of taking care of fallen trees like that? Is it the property owner's responsibility? Work with the trust?
It stops at the property line,
Okay.
basically. So as it would with anybody else. So unfortunately, the tree is theirs on their side of the property line. Often, if I can often talk to the conservation trust, depending on how big the tree is, they might be able to help the guy, cut it up a little bit.
Would you mind I don't know if you want to ping the trust or just ping Bill. But my understanding is the tree is across the property line at the 184 Harvard Road. The trust.
That helps. Okay.
And I can take a walk out there this weekend too.
Yeah. And I don't see the 67 Foster folks.
There are a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I guess we'll give them a minute. With that, I guess talk about the Negog Orchard Committee. My understanding is Sarah, given summer camp and so on, won't be able to support that going forward. Is that right?
Exactly.
And is anyone interested in sitting on the Negog Orchard Committee?
She had reached out and asked if I would be interested, or a couple of us, but I'd be interested. I'm willing to help out. I just have soccer commitments on Wednesdays, and I know that's when they meet until the first week of June or so, or whenever town soccer wraps up. So I need to talk to her more on the timing of that, when she's going to be gone, or when she's looking to get out of there.
Okay.
If that would work for her.
Let's add that to the agenda. Either we'll deal with it at the end of tonight, or we'll deal with it next week when Sarah's here. Then we'll get the specifics. Okay. No other administrative items?
I would like to point out the highway department did a fantastic job over at the Long Lake Park parking lot on Harwood Ave. I couldn't believe how great that is now.
Yeah, I drove by yesterday, and then I saw Amy's posts, I think later that day. And I drove by and I was like, wait, did something happen there? And then I saw Amy's posts. But so yeah, it's eye-openingly different for sure.
It's crazy. I turned into it, and I always do that brace for impact. Like you go in slow, and you go into the hole and come out. And I'm like, wow, wait a minute, that was smooth. And then I look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the whole place is redone.
Yeah, it's been on their list for a while, but they were able to get to it, and that's sort of it wasn't grindings. It's something that came out of the repaving material that is not grindings, but it's not stone dust, and it does have an alligator something inside it to keep it together. So interesting to watch it and see how it does. It's very flat in there, so it's not going to be challenged. The next one they might try to work on is the Hartwell parking lot, which is starting getting kind of bad. I think there's actually a drainage problem near the driveway that's right next to it, not caused by the driveway, but that's just where water is gushing through and going down through the parking lot. So they'll try to get to that one next.
So Amy, do we have our applicants for 67 Foster?
No, and I'm trying to check my email and see if I can remember who the consultant is on that. But I can't get into the files from here. Oh, maybe I can. There you go. This is not working. I've only got the owner's name. I don't have the consultant's name.
That house just sold, right? That's a two new tenant that just moved in there. I think. I wonder if that's another one that went way over asking. I assumed that there was a failed septic in it, but they moved in, so I guess I thought that everything was all right.
There we go. Maybe this will do it. Or it's going to be too late to give them a call anyway. The project 67.
Dillis and Roy were the designers.
Yeah.
Well, will you look that up? Amy? Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much.
So,
Welcome,
Mike, you haven't been sworn in yet, right?
No, the clerk was not in the office today, so hopefully I'll be able to connect tomorrow.
Okay. Nonetheless, as we're going here tonight, as we go through things, certainly if you have questions about process or what we're looking at and things like that, don't hesitate to jump in and ask questions. We'll just refrain from having you vote until you're sworn in. But I think otherwise it makes sense to have you participate.
All right, I'll do that, but my normal mode is to absorb for a little while and get my balance, but I'll be sure to ask lots of questions.
Yeah, we may deny you that as much getting your footing as you'd like.
Is that like hazing or?
It's just the nature of the beast.
All right, sounds good.
One thing to note, that all the projects that we're looking at, Amy's done a really nice job adding all of the projects to the conservation website. There's a heading on the main conservation page for Conservation Commission projects. And then if you go to that, you can pull up the projects that we're looking at as we go and the associated filing. So the first one we'll look at is 67 Foster, and that's up there. And the notice of intent, submittal, and plan and waiver request for that. And you'll see a lot of the waiver requests. The waiver requests are specific to waivers of Littleton wetland regs and the no disturb 50-foot zone. And so within there, we ask the applicant to provide the justification for work within the 50-foot, in particular, how the actions in the public interest are necessary to avoid a taking or to prevent a safety hazard. And so anything within the 50-foot should have a waiver with it, as well as the state filings for the notice of intent. And and associated wetland protection act submissions.
All right.
Chris McKenzie is about to call in once he gets the information. There you go.
All right. I am so sorry, everyone.
No worries, Chris. We'll we'll I guess turn it right over you to introduce the project if that works for you.
Yes.
Or if you need a minute, go ahead and compose yourself.
If you like, I can. If you share, let me share the screen. I can bring the plan up on the screen.
Sure.
For everyone to see. And that one. Share. How's that?
Looks good.
Can everyone see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Zoom in there. So this is an existing house located at 67 Foster Street. It's a 3-bedroom house. The existing system located in this area here, small little clouded area, needs to be replaced. We're proposing a Geomat, which is an IA system for this system replacement. The Geomat system allows for a large reduction in the square footage that the system is going to take up. All of this area is, of course, in the 100-foot buffer zone, which is located here. The house, the driveway, all already located in the buffer zone. We did do a couple of holes out front, or one hole out front. The conditions were not very good there. Plus, it would have meant having to deal with the gas and water service line. So we continued the testing out back in this area. We're proposing a poly barrier to meet the Title V breakout requirements for a septic system, which requires a 15-foot to a 3-to-1 slope, which would fill all the way down into the wetlands if we had to go that route. So this allows us to have a slightly less distance from the system to the breakout elevation, and then a steep slope on the back side. We show erosion controls around the entire area. As you can see, we're going to be right up against it, especially right here. That's wetland flag 3, and that's the erosion control barrier right there in front of it. The system itself is only going to be about 21 feet from the wetland area. Without an option like this, the only other option for the system would be a tight tank. So again, erosion control around the entire site, the work area. It's going to be a pump system, so there'll be a new septic tank and pump chamber installed up to, and that'll pump up to the leach area up here. And of course, the grading is going to be from one property line to the other and more or less right up against the wetlands on the backside. Anyone have any questions?
So is the system a failed system right now?
Yes, it is.
This is Kyle. Can you show us the cross section? It sounds like you're filling quite a bit back there inside of the 50 to put that barrier in. Is that true?
What's that?
These plants have a cross section, right, of that permeable impervious barrier? Yeah. So
Right.
what's the
here.
depth of that fill that you're putting?
Right. This is just shown for visual purposes, so it's not to scale. But the septic system is going to be located in a spot like this. The system breakout distance to the barrier is here. It's going to be 10-foot minimum. I think we're probably less than 10 feet. And then the poly barrier extends down from that breakout elevation down into the existing ground. So what that does is it prevents any effluent from the system from breaking out of the surface of the ground on the steep slope on the backside.
So can you tell me what that depth is? Yeah.
Elevation wise, yes, you're absolutely correct. We are starting off in this area right down the middle of the system at an elevation of about 98. The finished grade in that area is going to be 102. So we're bringing in 4 feet of fill. And it's going to be graded relatively steeply off to this side, meeting the minimum requirements for the system design. We do, I believe, look down here real quick. We meet the 4-foot minimum groundwater offset to the bottom of the system from the leach area. From the bottom of the leach area to the groundwater table. We're not really allowed any reduction in that because we're less than 50 feet from the wetland. Typically, we'd want to ask for a 1-foot reduction in that groundwater offset to reduce the amount of fill and the depth of the system. However, it's not really allowed when you have the 50-foot, when you're inside the 50-foot buffer.
It seems counterintuitive to me when we want to reduce the amount of fill that we're putting inside of that buffer.
That's why we've gone with this IA system. This is a specially approved Geomat system. The profile of it is very, very thin. The depth of the material underneath the units are about 1 inch thick, but they're about 1 inch high. And then there's 6 inches of sand underneath it, and that's the entire profile of the system. Versus a trench and stone system where you've got minimum of 6, sometimes up to 12 inches or even 24 inches of stone. That makes for a much taller system. So this has a much smaller profile and allows that grading to be minimized over and around the system. If we had to lay out a conventional system, which I may have done on here, let's see if we got it on sheet 2 here. Let's see. No, we don't have it on here. Sometimes we show a overlay of a conventional system. On this one, a conventional system would basically require the whole backyard as being used here, but then it would include a retaining wall, probably about 4 to 5 feet tall, all the way around the entire system. So it would start over here around the 99 or 100-foot elevation, and the wall would wrap right around basically where we have the erosion controls and back around. Because once again, you'd still have to meet that breakout requirement. So we'd need to have the poly barrier installed, as well as then the wall behind it, because the elevation would be so high you could never get the slope back with a regular slope. You'd have to have a wall. And these things would probably be right up to the property line because the system would be much larger and it would be higher. So this is basically our attempt at minimizing the size and height of the system. There are other IA systems we could have considered using. In fact, we could have used a Presby system as well, but that would have given a higher mound also. So we tried to do everything we could to minimize. That's why we went with the Geomat, because it's basically the thinnest profile.
And Board of Health was on board with that, or have you not met with them?
We're still working through with the Board of Health. They had some review comments for the plan that were all minor, but we haven't finalized with them. We are asking for a number of special approvals. A couple of them right here. Reduction of the system setback from a wetland, 21 feet, 50 foot is the required. And then we had a sieve analysis done on the soil instead of a perk test because the water table on the testing date was really high. So a perk test couldn't be performed. So we have to get special approval from them for those. So we have not got those yet.
How do you plan on holding that steep slope adjacent to the wetlands?
Right, it's a pretty steep slope. Certainly, some kind of we have our erosion control notes. Obviously, it calls for all slopes to be stabilized following the project. Really, whatever is going to work in here. So whether it's erosion control blankets or whatever the such, it is probably going to be 3 to 5 feet of height. So it's not a massively long slope, but it is going to be fairly steep at a 2 to 1 or so.
So how do we know that slope is going to be held in case you get torrential rainstorm? Right.
We call over here in our construction notes, we have all our standard notes about the minimum of loam and seed and natural grass cover. Certainly, if the commission wants to see something more, we could look at erosion control blankets or other types of controls that would stabilize the slope, at least on a temporary basis until the vegetation had a chance to fill in.
Chris, can you talk to me a little bit about the alternatives here? And in particular, you had mentioned that you took one sample towards the front, looks like 1121-1. You said it wasn't great. What does that mean?
They only got down to an elevation of 78 inches from 32, so that's not quite 48 inches. So they didn't have a valid depth of material. You need 4 feet of material below the B horizon. So your C horizon needs to be at least 4 feet, and it's only about 3.5 here. The water table was high as well here as it was down in the other holes. But really the big problem was that there must have been ledge or something or some kind of refusal down there. They only got a depth of 78 inches. Our other holes were 88. And this last hole here was 78 inches, but the B horizon was only at 28. So that gave us 58 inches of C horizon. So that meets the requirements. But that first hole did not. Plus, you also have the situation of the water and gas line going right through the front. Yeah, you can see the size of the system this is gonna be. So yeah, this hole is here, but a system in the front yard is gonna run from here to there. So you've got a gas line, a water line, and a driveway, and this is gonna be a mounded system. So you're gonna have a lot of trouble, maintaining access from the street to the house with that big system mound in front of that. So with those kind of elevations and those results, this area was voided out quite quickly, and that's why it's hole number 1, because that's the first one that they dug, and they said, nope, not going to work here. Let's go to the backyard, because that's where the existing system is, and that's probably where the better material and better results will be.
So why why didn't we investigate? I don't know what's up here, but let's call it the northeast corner if north is up. But why aren't we looking at a potential system sort of parallel to the existing driveway on the northern portion of the property, presuming north is up?
Right, right. I'm not sure what the conditions were out here. I wasn't on site myself. I didn't do the testing. The ground might not have allowed for it. I don't know if there was an outcrop of ledge or something. But this is the area that they were able to find valid testing that they used.
No, I understand that you've got valid testing there, but we're talking about doing all this work in the 50s. And until you can show me that there's an alternative, there are no alternatives to doing all this work in the 50. I'm going to struggle a lot with approving.
Well, again, if you look at the size of this system, try to put this anywhere else on the property, and it doesn't work. There's
Sure,
no
rotate it 90 degrees and put it along the existing driveway.
It sounds a lot. It sounds really simple, but trying to do that is going to put a situation where you're filling probably 4 or 5 feet right up against the garage.
Well, okay, we're talking about filling 4 or 5 feet essentially right up to the wetland.
It doesn't make the house unusable doing this. Putting that over here would void this garage, and the driveway would be nearly unusable. I don't think it could be. You'd have to reroute it some other way. And I don't know what else to tell you other than that this is where we have the acceptable testing for the Board of Health. The Board of Health was fine with these locations, seeing the results out there. This is an existing house with a failed system that is located here and is most likely contaminating the groundwater if it's a failed system, because it's in the ground probably about 3 feet, 4 feet. And this system's going to be about 3 or 4 feet out of the ground based on the testing results. So this is a bad failing situation. And this is the best way for it to be improved. The testing in the front yard didn't work out. There's just no valid area up there for that to occur.
What's the size of the current system? How many bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
What's the size of the new system?
3 bedrooms. We're not allowed to make it any larger. In order to qualify for these things down here, we're not allowed to ask for anything larger than the 3-bedroom that's there. That's state code.
What's your pleasure, folks? Do you think we need a site walk to take a look at this?
I'm kind of agreeing with you, Chase, that I don't think they've exhausted the alternatives yet. I mean, this is a big system all within the 50, right up to the wetland boundary with a steep slope. I'm not feeling very comfortable.
The reason it's a large system is because we had to take a soil sample for a sieve analysis, and we came back with a 30-minute per inch rate, which is one of the worst ones you can come back with. They don't get much worse than that. So that ends up requiring a system size of about 650 square feet. A minimum size of 600 square feet. A 3-bedroom system with this system would typically be 400 square feet with a much better perk rate. So it would be about 2/3 of the size. But it's large because of the slow perk rate that's out here, which in the end is really a better thing when it comes to treatment, because the slow perk rate means that it's going to take longer for the effluent to soak into the ground and get down into the water table. Better than a 2-minute rate. With a 2-minute rate, you have to have a higher groundwater separation to give more time for treatment of the sewage as it goes down. So a 30-minute rate, you end up with a larger system. You end up with 330 gallons spread over a larger area versus spread out over a smaller area, more concentrated load all in one spot. So right now, really, to show you, all that 330 gallons right now is going into this little area. Now we're going to take that 330 and spread it over this area, much larger area, with the same amount of flow and an increase from the groundwater separation probably of 4 to 5 feet, probably 4 feet anyways, minimum. Water table in that area, right next to the existing system, was found to be at 28 inches. So we're going to be 4 feet above that. I suspect that existing system is deeper than 28 inches in the ground. So therefore, that septic system is in the groundwater. And this is going to be 4 feet above it. So I think this is a marked improvement over the existing conditions on the site right now.
And if I just may interject really quickly, DEP's only comment was that the owner had not signed it. They recommend not closing until you get the signature, but that's entirely at the commission's discretion. You could make it contingent. And I didn't know if you would want a site walk on this, if you're feeling uncomfortable about it.
I'd like to schedule a sidewalk. Do you think we could schedule one, let's see. Tomorrow's taken up, Monday or over the weekend potentially? When are folks available?
You do Monday, like lunchtime, if anybody else is around.
Do Monday lunchtime. Amy, would that work?
Able to do that myself.
I could do Monday at lunch.
Monday at lunch.
Chris, do you know if that would work for you and your clients?
Yes, that would be Tuesday, Monday the 2nd.
Monday the 2nd at, let's say noon?
I can do that. That's actually the day of the Board of Health meeting is that night. So that would be good for me. At noontime, you say?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so you could
Well-
continue either to May 3rd. Oh, I had the wrong one on here. Or the 17th. I don't know if the commission wants more information on alternatives and how quickly Chris could do that.
I would say at a minimum, Chris, I think it would be important to see what a conventional system in this alignment would look like.
Yeah, I understand that. I have that somewhere if I had not been so late coming to your meeting, which I just got a reminder for. I would have been a little bit more prepared in that department. I apologize for that, but I certainly have that on hand that I can provide a copy of what a conventional would look like there.
And then I'd like to see an alternatives evaluation. You know, what are the other options here?
Sure.
I know you've discussed a little bit about the option around sampling location 1121-1, but
Right.
At least from a site layout perspective, looks like you might have other options.
I'll in before that next before even the site walk, I'll make sure I have a conversation with the guy Jack Maloney that was out there doing the test holes as to what was going on in that area up in the corner and why that wasn't looked at.
What do you think, extending it just a week? We're shifting our schedules a little bit, going from the 2nd and 4th to the 1st and 3rd weekends of Tuesdays of the month. So our next meeting, Chris, is actually next Tuesday on the 3rd. Does that give you enough time to take a look at those alternatives? Or would you like to extend it to the 17th of May?
Yeah, let's see. Can we go to the 3rd and then if things don't work out, maybe we just go to the 17th after that if I'm not quite ready. I just don't want to hold up the owners unnecessarily. I know it's only a couple of weeks, so it's probably not a big deal. And the Board of Health meeting is only on the 2nd anyway. So I'm not opposed to the 17th, but I don't want to hold it up unnecessarily if I don't have to.
Okay, please just notify Amy if you determine the 3rd isn't going to work for you, and the sooner you can make that determination, the better.
By like
Okay.
by Thursday morning.
Sure. I can do that.
And I would just make one other recommendation if the commission wants, if the design stays as it is I'm not sure wattles are enough with this kind of slope right next to the wetland. I mean,
Yeah,
at least
I was going to bring
silt
that up,
fence.
but yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't even get to that point. But yeah, that was on my
No,
list.
certainly, that makes plenty of sense.
But if you're making a plan change, you can do that easily.
Right, well, this is a tough one. I'm not gonna disagree with that. Asking for a 21-foot offset from the Board of Health is no given by any means. So there's every possibility they may want to see some changes as well. And so if they want changes, then I'm probably going to be in the situation where I can't really have it ready for them. But I'll let you know before Thursday anyways.
Okay, so we'll continue this to the 3rd. And a sidewalk scheduled for next Monday at noon. Okay, we'll move on to notice of intent for 107 Mattawanna, Mass DEP file number 2040921, construction of single-family house and septic system.
Hi, can you see me or hear me?
Can hear you, Peter. Can't see anything.
Okay, well, I don't know how to do that. Let's see. Well, we'll go with, shoot. Any idea how I make it? I asked you to start your video. Start my video. Well, there you go. Don't get shocked on how good looking I am. Now you can hear me, right? Because you're laughing. All right, good.
And see ya.
All right. I don't know how to put my plan on the computer for you guys to look at it like the last fella did. Oh, look at this. Is that me? No, that's the last guy, right?
I'm
I don't
getting
know what that was. Do you have the original print I have from Ted Doucette, Amy?
Yeah, I can get it. It's just going to take me a second.
Okay.
Are you seeing this?
Yes, that's it. All right, so I don't know, can you see this the arrow pointing around on it?
We can't see your arrow.
You can or cannot?
Cannot.
All right, so if you stop at that one right there, that should be good enough. The distance from the road to the front of the house, the proposed house is right there is 34 feet. The maximum length of the house could be 41 feet by taking 50 feet from the wetlands back, for a no disturb zone. It's going to be smaller than that, so it'll be more than 50 feet away from the wetlands. The neighbor over here to the, I'm going to say to the east of my property has been receptive to removing, having me give him town water, and into his house. I will also be on town water, and that brings me out of the 100-foot buffer from his well. So that clears all my, my biggest hurdles in order to build on my property here. It's a excellent system. I'm going to say I'm permitted 8 feet on the sides, on both sides. I'm probably going to try and make it a little bit more than that, but as long, probably more like 10 feet off. The retaining walls on both sides are going to be minimal. So what I was really looking for is just any suggestions you might have that you'd like more than what Ted Doucette has put on the print, where the wattles running around the entire perimeter. So that, once I start doing construction on it, everything is hunky-dory for the most part until I'm going to go in front of the Board of Health, get approval for this system. Again, it shouldn't be any problem. It's about a 2-minute perk rate. And I meet all the codes, everything I have to meet in order to do so. And again, I'm being out of the 50-foot buffer zone. with virtually all construction present. So if you get any questions.
Can you help us understand, you say you're out of the 50-foot. I'm having a hard time following that, given that the 50-foot appears to bisect.
Okay, the
house.
total, the depth of the land is 125 feet deep from the road to the water. Someone's moving an arrow around. So if you go from the road back, it's 75 feet along the road, right where that arrow is now.
Mhm.
Okay, and then all straight all the ways back is 125 feet. So the way the septic system needs 10 feet off of the road, 14 feet worth of trenches with the expansion, and then 10 feet to the foundation. So that's 34 feet in total. You take 34 feet and 50 feet off the wetlands, it leaves me with 41 feet. And again, the building is only 36 feet, I think, or 38 feet. And again, that's just the proposed size. This is where I'm going to retire, so it's probably going to be smaller more than larger because of the tax implications that go along with this, as you all well know, I'm sure.
So Peter, is my understanding this is not the proposed plan, right? There's going to be a new drawing that comes out.
The reason I'm showing you this is because it's the best scaled model I have of where the obviously it's to scale for the septic, and the house is basically as big as I could put on it to get to this point, just to come to see you to see if you had any suggestions or any wishes or wants. So here I am asking you what you would like. I envision the house being close to this size, but probably a little smaller. Again, I have to stay 8 feet off the sidelines. The land was divided before 1947. So I go under the rules from 1947 for the most part, as far as offsets are concerned. And again, by meeting the new criteria, because it's kind of new construction for the most part, although it is on a non-conforming lot, you get advantages by doing this. It's, again, it's still a buildable lot regardless. So what I'm asking you is what would you like to see? Are wattles enough for you down by the wetlands? Would you rather have a silt fence and hay bales? What would you prefer to see in the lower end of this to mitigate any transfer of silt or anything else along that line?
I'm still struggling here with the application, I guess,
Okay.
and in particular the building that's proposed and the work that's within the 50-foot no disturb.
Okay, there is. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I guess let me ask you very specifically: is there or is there not work within the 50-foot no disturb zone?
Right now, there is no work inside the 50. None.
Okay, the notice of intent says the waiver is specifically asking to construct a foundation and impervious roof within the town's 50-foot no disturb zone. So I think we've got to get this squared away and understand exactly what you're asking for.
Okay, then
before we can move forward.
All right, I understand. Again, I'm doing the math by the paper, 125 feet deep, 34 feet from the road to the foundation, 50 feet off of the water, it leaves me 41 feet. I'm trying to stay out of the 50-foot in all instances. But if I'm going to end up having to ask for a variance, then you better. I'll ask for 25 feet off, and then if you say no, you can have 30 or 35 feet. I understand. But, I don't want to ask for something I don't really need. I'm trying my best to stay out of the 50-foot range so there's no issues. But to be safe and fair, I'd rather I'll say, okay, I'm asking for 30 feet off the, well, maybe he's got a drawing, say it's 27 feet, but that's to the edge of a cantilever deck, okay? Which would mean only 3 sonotubes would be inside the buffer zone for that instance. So I'll tell you what, how about if I go with 25 feet, and that 25, inside that 25 feet would be nothing more than sonotubes. You see the back deck on that? So that's all there would be for disturbing, and it, excuse me, there'd be those new big concrete towers that you just drop in place, so there'd be no mixing. Do you see what I'm saying now?
I think I see what you're saying, but we have typically considered the entirety of the deck to be worked within the no disturb zone, not just the footings themselves.
Okay. Whatever you decide.
Even still, like, I'm still confused with what's going inside of the no disturb, the 50, because like, I get the 27 that you're talking about, but
Okay.
if the house isn't in the 50, then that 27 feet should be longer. It sounds like Ted needs to create a plan that shows the numbers that you were just discussing for us to see, to show that there isn't a house inside the 50 foot. Because right now there is.
Okay, well, if I did the math starting from the road, the constant, which is, again, it's 125 feet deep. So that's how I did my math coming from the road. It's the only constant I have that I can rely on.
Understood. So, Amy, if you can zoom into the house structure itself, the proposed house. So what we're basing this off of, Peter, is the 50-foot line right here is going right through the house. And so I think what we'd like to do is continue this and ask you to have this revised to show what it is I think you're describing, which is different than what's in the drawing. Because right now what's in the drawing, a solid third of the house, even excluding the cantilever deck, is within the 50 foot. And that there's some mismatch there between what you're describing and what's in the picture.
Okay.
I think the problem is we actually have to see the proposed,
Okay.
which we're not.
All right.
seeing.
I can see, yeah, I can see where you see that. But I'm going to find out where we came up with. The only thing I can envision is that the 125 feet deep is to the existing wetlands, where originally the land probably went further out into the water. The place had been dredged a number of times over the years, so it appears that, unlike in Peter's instance, they've made more wetlands.
I think
Very good.
it sounds like we need a wetland delineation also,
Okay.
so we actually know what the line is that we're using as our wetland delineation.
Okay. All right. With that being said, it looks as you're right, and by the line he's got drawn here, if that be the wetlands. I think I had Matt down there once already, but I'll check and make sure. And I'll have the wetlands delineated. How do you say that word?
Delineated. Did Matt Morrow delineate it originally?
I'm not certain if he did this. He did where I'm living now.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. And that should be all over with now too, isn't it? You do one last walkthrough and then we're all set as far as 5 Scott Road is concerned.
Yeah, I think we need at least one more monitoring report.
Okay. Is that from Matt? Is that all right? I'll give Matt a call and find out what he wants. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back to Ted tomorrow and find out exactly the depth of what I'm looking for a variance for the off the 50-foot setback from the wetlands, okay?
Okay, and we'd like to continue this.
Yeah, right now it says 27.5 feet for the most part. So let's go with that as probably I'm gonna be asking for that, is what I guess is we can shoot for, okay?
Okay.
All right. Anything else going out of me?
If we're gonna continue this, let's continue it to a date certain. How long, Peter, do you think it's gonna take you to get back to Ted and get information to us? We've got meetings in May on the 3rd, which I'm gonna guess is probably too soon. The 17th. Are we also meeting on the 31st thing?
No.
Or we just no. Okay.
I think the 17th should be good. I'll have Matt get out there immediately and see if he can use what I have now for engineering and stuff and apply that to what the wetlands delineated. I said it better this time, right?
You got it.
There you go. And we'll go from there, okay?
Okay. Very good.
All right, one last question, if you don't mind. In the meantime, if I can get everything set up for my neighbor down there with putting his water line in, it's not inside the 50-foot zone whatsoever that I'm going to do the water line. It's going to go up from the far right of my property.
Is it within the 100-foot?
Huh?
Is it within the 100-foot buffer zone?
Yep.
Okay. Then we would need a
Yes.
filing to support it.
Okay. Very good. All right. I'll just get a hold of him, and then we'll again, it's just some legal mumbo jumbo we've got to straighten out, and once that goes fine, that's always fun. Okay.
Okay. Very good. We'll continue this to the 17th.
All right. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Peter.
Now, how do I go away? Let's see. All right, I'm going to mute me. You ready? See ya.
Okay. Running a few minutes behind here, but we'll take up the 8:15 item. Notice of intent for 93 Mattawanakee, 59 Mattawanakee, 49 Mattawanakee, and 1 Chipmunk associated with the installation of benthic mats for aquatic plant control. Let's see, we've got Dave Barr here. Dave, are you speaking on behalf of the applicants as you did last time?
Yeah, and Steve Haddon is also here, and Michael Livingston is also here, and Phil and Susan Souza are here too. So they're the other, so all 4 of the applicants are there, as well as me as a representative.
Very good.
And I will point out just real quickly, there's still no DEP file number.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, the other region has had theirs for a couple of weeks. They're different regions, I know.
So last time we met on these, Dave, I think we sent you away with a little bit of homework to do. Want to fill us in on sort of where you got to with the questions we had?
Yeah, you were looking for more specifics about what we would be doing, that we had laid out sort of all of the different ways in which these benthic mats are being used. And so we identified what specifically the different participants are proposing to use at the various sites, at the 4 sites. And as it turns out, for these 4 sites, one of them is planning to use polypropylene tarps with sandbag and stone weights, and the other 3 are planning to use burlap sheets, and the polyethylene tarps would be removed after 4 to 6 weeks, and the burlap tarps are planned to be left in place and continue to serve as benthic mats, and then over time they would decompose and they would plants would reroot on top of them. Siltation would come in on top of them, and they would become part of the lake bottom. We did reach out. I reached out to the people at to the Lake Association at Hickory Hills Lake in Lunenburg, which is one of the closer lakes that has done this a fair amount. They have their order of conditions and their benthic mats all use burlap. That was approved by the Conservation Commission there, and they have a process where the Lake Association is authorized to inventory these kits and then make them available to lakeshore owners that want to try to use them. I did reach out to them since the last meeting to see if they had any problems with any pieces of burlap making, kind of floating loose into the lake. I didn't hear back from them about that. I think Amy reached out to their conservation agent to see about getting their orders of conditions, and I don't think she's heard back from them either.
I did, and actually that's Matt Marrow, who's the Lunenburg agent, but he did send them over just this afternoon, so I haven't really looked at it.
All right.
They do have a form in there for applying, so an owner could apply to the Lake Association to put in a mat. But the notice of intent was a huge lake management notice of intent, of which a small part was the burlap, what turned out to be the burlap benthic mats.
Right. Yeah. So their application form for residents to put down the benthic mats specifically calls for using burlap. They have two different kits, both with burlap layers and sandbags.
Any questions for the applicant so far?
Sure, I have a quick question. This is Kyle. So the burlap, sounds like your intent is to leave these in place and have them become part of the lake bottom. What happens to the anchors you're putting down? Whatever it was, minimum 25 sandbags or stone-filled bags? Are those becoming part of the pond bottom as well, or
Yeah.
will those get removed? They stay?
They generally stay. I mean, that's what they did at Hickory Hills. That's pretty common, and then they would become part of the soil at the bottom of the of the lake. Yeah, the polyethylene tarps would be removed, and the sandbags or rocks. If there are rocks that are put in, they'd be taken out. Sandbags would be taken out. The tarps would be taken out. The polyethylene ones. Yeah.
The bottom of the lake now is sand and gravel. And so the intent would be that the burlap benthic mat is held down by burlap bags filled with sand and gravel. The burlap is made with jute, which is a plant, and it simply degrades like all plants do eventually. And it would just leave the sand and gravel, and the organic material of the jute would be the residual after some number of years. I guess another thought there is that the amount of plant material that will occur in the area where the mat is 100 to 1,000 times greater if we don't put the mat there than if we do. the mat will suppress plant growth. So the burlap will leave a certain amount of organic residual, but that's very, very small compared to the organic material that will grow there in the absence of the mat.
And just to remind you, what I don't know, about a dozen or so lakeshore residents do annually right now is to use hydro raking, which uses effectively a backhoe on a barge, and it scrapes across the bottom of the lake bed as deep as the backhoe can reach, and then dumps the plant and rock and soil and mud that's captured in the backhoe and dumps it on the bank. And in that case, the disturbance to the lake bottom is considerably more. I would say it's not a very discerning tool. And one of the other concerns about hydro raking is that I would say there's a hydro raking system. This is done. This is one of the ones on our lake here 10 years ago or so. And so this is one where it's largely plant material. I have seen a lot of times where what is actually brought up is very little plant material and largely dirt and rocks, and so it can run the range. But one of the problems with a situation like this is that a significant amount of the plant material that's pulled up doesn't make it to the shore, but floats away and floats all around the lake. It can foul other property, and depending on what the plants are, some of the plants reroot when they float to another place, and that can spread the invasive plants around the lake. So that's one of the alternatives that we're trying to see how well this works compared to that. So that's sort of that's something that's already in use and approved on the lake.
One of the other questions that we posed to you last time we met was your plan for treating this as a pilot study and gathering useful information out of it, including inspecting the mats, comparing. Sounds like we're going to have two different options to compare. Can you please talk us through how you intend to treat this as the pilot that you describe it as? What information you're going to collect? Are you planning on reporting it to us? What are you planning on doing with this information to ultimately make a decision about what might work best in Lake Milan? Right.
So I just would also mention that we have these 4 sites in Littleton. We have 3 sites in Westford that we're talking to the Westford Conservation Commission about. The 3 sites in Westford, as it turns out, are all using a commercial benthic mat, which is plastic tarp with metal rods holding it down, and those are being removed after a month or 2. So we would during installation, we'd be documenting the actual installation dates, the actual mat material and construction, the installation procedures used, any bottom conditions, what kind of bottom is there, what kind of plants can we see that are in place, obstacles on the bottom, rocks, that kind of thing, sketches for the layouts of the mats, and any installation issues encountered. If the mats are, if some of the mats may be moved, none of the mats in Littleton are being planned to move. Some of the mats in Westford are being planned to be moved. In that case, we'd be documenting what happens then too. And as the mats are in place, any issues in maintaining the positions or the hold down equipment would be documented. Plants growing adjacent to and onto the mats, on top of the mats, as in some cases, especially with the burlap, as they stay there and other sediment lands on top, and those mats also have kind of, they're not as slick, so the plants can take a root better. So the plants growing next to and on the mats would be documented. And any other notable conditions related to, the mats, like siltation, that sort of thing. And after they're removed, we'd record the removal dates, any issues with removal, any subsequent conditions in the areas previously covered by the mats and adjacent to them. So as the mats, like where the polyurethane mat comes out, that would start to grow normally again. So we'd be interested in what kind of edge conditions we have around all of these mats, what's growing up next to them, how much are they growing while the mat's in place, what kind of edge conditions do you have there, and then as the polyurethane mat comes out, what kind of plant growth is there once that's removed. So we'd be planning to document that during the season, before, during, and after this process. If we're doing this, I believe, we'll be leaving the burlap mats in, for a few years, so we can be documenting the progression of those, what happens around them and on them, what kind of issues are there in keeping them in place, and that sort of thing. And the polyurethane mat, if we put it in again in subsequent years during this order of conditions, we'd be monitoring again the same thing. If we do this, if we have a 3-year period, we'd be providing a report at the end of each season. And we'd be doing that for the Westford site as well. They've actually proposed some draft orders of conditions that they sent us today. I don't know if you got those, Amy. I can send them to you if it's of interest. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
And they had requirements for us to be, monitoring and reporting all the way through and again annually.
Say annually.
Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Sorry. I was curious what you just said, report annually. What is this a 3-year thing? What are you reporting? What kind of a time frame?
Well, I don't know. My understanding is that generally the Conservation Commission orders of conditions run for 3 years, are in place for 3 years. So the burlap mats would stay in place, and so there would be just a progression of how well those work over time, and the polyurethane ones and the commercial ones in Westford would be coming out. They'd be down for like a month or 6 weeks or something on that order, and then they'd be coming out. And then it's likely that if the first year worked reasonably well, then we'd put it in. We'd probably try putting them in again, the next year, and see, how the progression goes. If we thought that, so that's what I meant by that.
Dave, if these are successful, would the long-term goal be to basically give property owners on the lake, put this in their toolkit. If a property owner wants to do this in the future, you can say, yep, we've got a long-standing agreement with Westford and Littleton. You can use these mats, or would you be looking to enlarge the size of the mats that you're installing on the individual segments?
So the what we're hoping is that this will be a valid alternative to something like the hydro raking. And if it seems like it's a useful option, and that some lake residents would like to try it, or find that it's useful and like to, try it, multiple times, we would like to see if we can get a process in place that would make it easier for them to do that than to go through what we're doing now each time. Kind of along the lines of, people put in docks every year and they don't come back and get a, order of condition every year to put the docks in. It would be something more controlled than that. I mean, I would hope to have something along the lines of what Hickory Hills Lake has, where there is, we would come back to you and the Westford Conservation Commission and say, okay, here's our experience from this group of 7 sites between the 2 towns, and now we'd like to do something that, that residents can more readily make use of. Can we agree among ourselves what kind of process is appropriate to have enough oversight and constraints and orders of conditions in place so that, things are done well, but make it, easier for the residents to use it. Like Amy said, at Hickory Hills, there's the order of conditions has an application that the residents use if they would like to try this, where they, identify certain information, and then the Lake Association has a group that's chartered to manage that process and that program, and then there's reporting on that to the town, I believe, as well. So that would be the hope.
Okay, thank you.
Steve had something to say.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting, and maybe some of you saw this if you read the Massachusetts report that we referred to last time, that it isn't really practical to do these things over large areas. Those of us who want to do it, I think all of us want to create a place where our children and grandchildren can swim. That's a key goal. And the second one is an avenue in and out for the powerboat so that it doesn't tangle. Powerboats need cooling and they draw weeds into the cooling system and it makes a mess of the motors. Depending on the landowner, waterfront, some people don't have any problem with that. Other people, it kills their motors at least once a year. Anyway, the area that a waterfront owner needs to cover with a thing like this is quite limited. And that's appropriate because it isn't practical to do these things on a big area. They're difficult to put in and maintain and remove. So, we don't expect that, even if this works out wonderfully, we don't expect that there will be a lot of this ever. It'll just be an alternative to hydro raking, which is a quite limited area thing. You pay $200 an hour for this machine to do your waterfront. And this would be environmentally a much more benign thing than the hydro rake is, but still a very limited thing just by its nature.
Yeah, and thanks, Steve. Brian, I didn't address your second question. I wouldn't expect that the size of the mats at each site would really change. I mean, if we get to a second round, we could see what we think the, an appropriate size is. Currently, we're suggesting 600 feet. I don't expect that would, change, markedly.
Okay. You're not envisioning some sort of mega mat covering the entirety of the lake.
No, I mean, these 7 sites that we're putting down now, if everybody put down the 600 square feet, that would be something like 0.05% of the lake. So 1/20th of 1% of the area of the lake. And even if you had 15 or so people, that's still 1/10 of 1%.
Yep, I can appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to need to move on, and given that we don't have a file number, we're not going to be able to close this tonight if we wanted to. I will say a couple of things before we move on, though. One, I remain a little bit skeptical of the burlap. I'm afraid it's just going to turn into a raggedy mess. But that, I guess, I see that as a determination to be made in the pilot study process. If it works and I'm wrong, and I would be very happy to be wrong, and it's an ideal material, then that's great. So to the extent that we're looking at 3 locations, I can get my head around that.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
Just real quick. So we've looked at a lot of different sources, and that describe a lot about pluses and minuses about all this. Nowhere in any of that did we see anything about that. So that's sort of one thing.
Okay, and I think in this case the data will be the data, right? If it works, great, and if it doesn't, then I think we'll have some other things to look at.
Right.
Process-wise, Amy, right now the notice of intent has all of the various combinations and permutations in it. The applicants have come forward and said there are 2 specific styles. Do we need them to write something up that narrows their notice of intent just to what they actually intend to do, or can we do that in an order of conditions or something?
So we did send Amy a document that says it's an addendum to the notice of intent that says what's going to be done at each of the 4 sites, and also what's going to be done at the 3 Westford sites. I don't know whether that was distributed or not.
I was just looking at what we have on the website, and Amy maybe hasn't gotten it up on the website yet. But.
Oh, if I didn't, I apologize for that. I thought I'd emailed that around. It came in Friday, maybe?
It came in Thursday night, yeah.
Yeah, Thursday. So I probably didn't get it up on the website.
And if you emailed it around, I didn't see it, but I wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I would typically put the date of that information and that little memo right in the order of conditions, so it's clear that is what is being approved.
Right. Yeah, that's what Westford did. They added that to the documents that they referred to. Mm-hmm.
Then I would suggest we continue this just a week. Our next meeting is on May 3rd. And hopefully we have a DEP file number at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from
I would just say, Dave, you went through a long list of things that you do in your monitoring recording.
I had that at the bottom. I had that at the bottom of that document I sent you.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading. I'm not very good at. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. So we'll move on now to the 8:30. Kara, Corey, sorry we kept you guys waiting a half hour here, but we'll move on to the notice of intent for 242 King Street, Littleton Water Department, Phase 1A of the Littleton Water Expansion Project. Kara, I'll turn it over to you or Corey or whoever on your team's going
to. Yeah, no, I'll let Kara and her team do most of the talking tonight, but just appreciate you having us all back. As you know, last time, 2 weeks ago, I guess, we or CDM Smith gave sort of an overview presentation. He had a pretty packed agenda that night, and we gave you several hundred pages to review. So I'm hoping you've had a little bit of time to digest some of that and maybe have some questions for us tonight. But I think they're going to present just a brief sort of updates of, some couple of things that have happened since 2 weeks ago. So I'll turn it over to them.
Oh, and before we get into this, I just want to recuse myself again like I did last meeting. So I'll be hiding in the shadows.
It's all yours, Tara.
And
Thanks,
the
good-
EP number
good
did
evening.
come in, so that's all set.
Awesome, thank you. All right, are you guys seeing my PowerPoint, my PDF here?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. All right, thanks again for having us tonight. So as Corey said, as a reminder, we submitted the NOI to talk through the Phase 1A project that will include 242 King Street proposed facility for the new water resource recovery facility, as well as the pumping stations that fall within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission in the collection system. So tonight I'm going to quickly pass it over to Maggie, and she's going to go through some of the updated planting plans that we've put together to go through tonight. We also have available Diane Villardosha from our team is also available to go through any stormwater questions that you may have. And Maggie is also going to touch on some of the Phragmites management plan. So I'll pass it right over to you, Maggie.
Thank you, Kara. So we, based on the comments from the last public hearing, or at least Amy was looking for a more detailed planting plan for the proposed stormwater basins and the low-lying area. So we developed and submitted this revised plan, and it uses, we're proposing some swamp white oak plantings and some sour gum, river birch. This is around the basins, basically. And some American hornbeam. It's a mixture. And the low-lying area is going to be planted with black willows, and then some clumps of buttonbush. I'm sorry. These are the buttonbush clumps here. A number of them sort of spread out throughout to try to create some shade and vegetation in this low-lying area. And then we're proposing to use 3 different seed mixes. If you want to go to the next, I should show you that this would be a wetland seed mix. And what we are proposing there is actually just to seed with cattails. So this is the area that's currently vegetated with Phragmites. And then we have, if you want to go to the next slide, we have some seed mixes for the infiltration basins. We're proposing the New England Erosion Control and Restoration mix from moist sites. It's a mix of native grasses and wildflowers. And then the natural area seed mix, which would be on the more upland areas, will be a showy northeast native wildflower mix. And that has a number of pollinators in it too. So it comes from Ernst Seeds in Pennsylvania. If you want to go to the next slide. So we contacted Solitude Lake Management regarding the herbicide Phragmites management within that low-lying area of the existing stormwater basin. And what they are suggesting is that we spray it at minimum of 4 weeks before site work begins, because apparently the herbicide should be within the plants for a minimum of 4 weeks in order to function properly. And then they are proposing what they would use is clear cast herbicide, and this is the rate. It would be sprayed using low volume backpack sprayers. And then, of course, it'd be cut before excavation and disposed of off-site. And then there would be follow-up for 2 years where there would be monitoring and spot treatment with the same clear cast herbicide. Any questions on that before we continue? Okay, so the other thing I think that came up during the last public hearing was a question where the utilities would be located, the utilities going into the new plant site. And so we're providing this plan to show that it will all be within the proposed access road into the site. So the kind of gray, shaded gray is the limits of the proposed access road. And I think that those are all the slides that we have. So open it up to questions.
Kind of you to not point out that that was in the original package, despite my question last time. Questions from the commission?
Sure, I have a quick one, Chase. You just mentioned the utilities. This works out well here on this plan. I think from what our multiple pipelines, in and out to the plant and whatnot. Can you just describe the makeup of pipes? Like, are they concrete? Are they sitting in concrete? Are they direct buried? What's the plan?
Sure. Yeah, the pipelines will all be direct buried at a minimum depth based on the requirements. So water will be below the frost depth. Sewer will be coming in via force main, so that will also be at a minimum 5 feet deep. The gas line is a smaller HDPE plastic proposed pipe. And then we also have force main leaving the plant going up to the high school. We also have an incoming force main of wastewater coming in from the high school. And I'm probably missing one. Electric would be buried in PVC.
Any other questions here? If there aren't any, I'd want about, given the proximity of some of this work in the to the wetland line, if it would be possible to discuss a little bit sort of the sequence of the work and how we're sort of going to try and keep the keep the disturbance to as small of a time period as possible. That is, we're not going to go in and out of a disturbed area. You speak to the sequencing a little bit and how that can try and minimize the impact.
Sure. Maggie, I don't know if you would include anything specific to that on the sequencing. And obviously the contract will have to be awarded to the contractor to determine the specific sequencing. But obviously some site work will need to be done so that they can access the site, and they would need to set up all of their support provisions at that time to prevent any impacts. I don't know, Maggie, did you include any extra information as far as support in the back of the site down here beyond the typical provisions?
No, we just included sedimentation and erosion controls along the perimeter of the site. I think maybe what the question is asking, like in what order, like, with the utilities go in first, is that what you're looking for? And then,
yeah, I'm sorry, that was a really terribly worded question. What I want to do is make sure that that we're doing all the work in an area that we're going to need to do, and you're not going to need to go in and out of an area any more than necessary to do incremental pieces. And I guess I was also interested in, to some extent, some of the construction laydown areas, which I didn't really ask about, but how that the actual construction sequencing is going to work in terms of where equipment is going to be, and ensuring that the finished footprint is consistent with what the actual limits of work are going to be.
I think, but if you want to pull up the set, you know, the 90% drawings might be good, because we showed the limit of work, on the plans that were submitted with a notice of intent, and we don't, we're not going to go beyond that, the limits shown on those plans. So are you looking,
Well, for
I still
instance,
don't quite
is
understand.
access road the first thing you build, and then you do sketch in the basins and then start the main work, or how do you progress the construction across the site?
Yeah, that's likely the method, but it will be up to the contractor to determine based on the time of the award too. So based on the season, that will play a factor into it too. But obviously, we would require that they minimize and hopefully prevent going back into areas where they already did to reduce impacts. And I'm just looking for that lay down plan while we're chatting here.
If there was a laydown plan, I missed it, and I apologize if I'm again asking a redundant question. I saw a site prep and erosion and sediment control plan, but it wasn't clear to me that represented where all the stockpiles were going to be, and so on. Particularly once we get back to the actual building construction phases in the back portion of the site.
I don't think any of the plans showed the stockpiling. Oh, actually, it did. It did show the stockpiling areas. I apologize. Did you find that plan, Kara? Or?
Yep, the civil layout and materials plan.
I guess it did not show the stockpiling areas. I think that we included that for the special permit set, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, if you go to figure C3, you've got some stockpile areas that look like what you're going to need for the initial phase of the work.
Again, I think as Kara pointed out, it's going to be up to the contractor. So could it be a provision in the order of conditions for the contractor to provide the commission with a phasing plan?
I'd certainly like to see that. And the reason I guess I'm pushing on this a little bit is that there are some decisions that the contractor could make during construction that, even though strictly speaking within the limits of the work, we'd still like to keep things like, I don't want to see stockpiling right against the edge of right against the limits of work and so on, if it's at all avoidable. For example, a major storm event or something like that could have a serious impact on the wetland if that were to be mobilized. Does that make some sense?
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So would you like us to, again, we could develop, a preliminary, phasing plan, but again, it may need to be modified, once we have a contractor on board.
Yeah, and those types of items are covered in the typical specifications that will be included in the contract. So they're definitely included to be preventable through that method. But like Maggie said, we could try to identify something at this point, but it really will be up to the contractor to provide a plan for Littleton's approval that they could then provide to the Conservation Commission.
I'd very much like to see that because I'm also thinking of things like fuel storage and so on. And I'd really prefer to see fuel storage outside of the 100-foot buffer, things like that. But I think that's something that is better handled once you've got a contractor on board. And perhaps we put it in the conditions that the town and the contractor need to provide that to us before work can commence or something like that.
Sure. I would assume will this need a NPDES permit?
It does, and yeah, and we do the same thing in our specifications. We put that responsibility onto the contractor because again, we can't predict the means and methods, so that's why we don't do the construction general permits. We always put it on the contractor as their responsibility.
So you're saying the contractor has to come in for their own notice of intent?
No, so we're talking about the NIPDs, the US EPA construction general permit.
Yeah, I know that, but you were saying you're laying all this stuff on the contractor that I'm hearing.
No, just not all. No, we're doing the notice of intent and all the other permitting. The only thing that the contractor would do is the NIPD's construction general permit, because that is it talks specifically about like stockpiling, chemical storage, other, material storage, etc. I mean, the plans have to be, developed very, and it talks about phasing, etc. So that's the only thing that in the construction specifications that we put on the contractor to obtain. Like the only permit.
And I guess what I'm saying is that I'd like to see that as well. And it might be worthwhile for the town to put that in the specifications for the contractor that they need to satisfy the Conservation Commission as well, so that the town doesn't end up with a change order because of something that a town commission ended up disliking in the contractor's approach.
So would you want an order that be submitted for review by the Conservation Commission? I don't know if you necessarily want to say approval, but at least review and comment by the Conscom?
Yeah, I don't think we need a approval. Review and comment would be fine then.
So you're saying that the construction general permit application?
Yeah.
I think that would make sense.
And to be clear, what I'm specifically looking for here to make sure that we don't have fuel storage, hazardous material storage, and stockpiling within the buffer zone.
And probably something on phasing too.
And something
which they have to.
But that'll be.
And I don't think that Green International has started their peer review yet for the planning board. I know they're getting under contract. I don't know if CDM Smith knows if they've started.
We've gotten a couple of questions. So I thought that they had started. I wasn't aware if they weren't under contract or not yet.
I don't know. I haven't heard much back from them except that that they have the information. I think Tom said that he's starting it.
Yeah.
He may have been out. Was he out on vacation? Maybe school vacation last week?
He was out, although he was answering emails. So.
Oh, okay. So he probably started this week.
Yeah.
So with that, and given that given that Green is unlikely to have their review completed by our next meeting on Tuesday, do we want to continue this to the 17th so that we have their review in hand before we close this, or is the commission comfortable going forward without their review in hand?
I imagine also by the 17th, you can get the actual Phragmites proposal. I don't think you had the whole thing yet.
I did actually get it today. I
Oh,
can
okay,
forward
so
it
that
to
was,
you.
okay.
Yeah, after I emailed you.
Yeah, yeah.
It was pretty bulleted though. It wasn't a lot to it. I may have received a short version.
I'll just mention as well that we'll be in front of the planning board next Thursday night for site plan review and aquifer district special permit. And so that's the stormwater third party review from Green International kind of plays into that as well. They won't grant a special permit until they're satisfied with that. So I expect we'll be there next Thursday and probably an additional hearing after that.
So for once, we're not holding up the show.
Right.
Okay. Then I'd say let's continue this to the 17th unless there are objections, and then potentially we'll have the full review in hand at that point. Does that work for you, Corey?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Any other comments from the commission? Very good. Thank you all. We appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
That's me.
And we have our two 845, so the end lines. Tom Forest, Boston Trails, Cooper Wellington Bike Trails.
Yeah, I was wondering why nobody had showed up for those. I realized, oh, that's me. Yeah, so I have to admit that last week I wasn't totally prepared. I was prepared for everything else. And I said, oh, shoot, I'm doing this too. We did get the DEP numbers with no comments on both of those. So just a quick recap. Sorry, try that again. This is actually one you'll see next week. Let me get rid of you guys. So this is the town forest boardwalks. The yellow stars are the ones that you had already approved. We're actually not doing one at 5 or 8. They don't need them. And 6 and 7 would be the two no ones. This is a picture of where number 6 is going to be going. And then Balsam Lane, which is basically an attachment to town forest, would have these 5 new boardwalks, boardwalk 4 areas shown here, and would include a trail out to Balsam Lane with a parking lot, and the parking lot will be outside of the buffer zone. And then the second one, the Wellington Cooper crossing, is Steve Marsh's Wellington Circle development. This is Dean Lane, Cooper over here. Here is the basin we want to look at. I think tomorrow, I guess it is. And you can see the cart path that's kind of basically always been there, but has been used more. So you can see it on the aerial photographs now. And this is where the crossing was needed. And because of just a miscommunication, Steve Marsh thought he had the permits, but I hadn't gotten them yet. It is already there. It is high and wide. So there is actually, as per the stream crossing guidelines, basically upland travel underneath the bridge. And he did a nice little kind of bench and planted a couple extra trees that he had. I'm not convinced that they will live, but so those are the two projects. The ones up in Town Forest and Balsam Lane will basically be the same boardwalk construction that the other ones have done, mostly sitting on the pipes. So I'm hoping you would be willing to issue a waiver in order of conditions for those two separate ones.
Sounds great.
Any comments, or Andrew, you want to make a motion for us?
I will make a motion that we close the public hearing for both, or should we do them separately?
Let's do them separately just to dot the i's, cross the t's.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for the town forests and balsam trails, DEP file number 204-0957,
And issue a waiver.
and to issue a waiver.
Thank you.
Second,
Be a roll call vote. Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase Gerwig, aye. And passes. And another motion, Andrew?
Another motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for the Cooper Wellington Bike Trail, Mass DEP file number 204-0958 with waiver.
Whatever.
Oh, no waiver.
Wait, what? You tell Steve.
I'll second that one also.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase Gerwig, aye. Carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
So Amy,
Better or worse?
who's
You'll see
the
another
lucky,
one next week. Sorry, Kyle.
who's doing all of that construction for you, for us?
The 5 over at Balsam and the parking lot is part of the grant that we won't hear about until July 1st. See if we get that. Otherwise, the land stewards, i.e. Jim O'Neill, will be building the 2 at Town Forest. And then the one you'll actually see next week is an Eagle Scout project.
Excellent.
Very good. Anything else we need to talk about tonight, Amy?
I don't think so. Wait till Sarah's back for the new officers.
Yeah, let's do that. And then Mike can vote too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, just corral the town clerk, and then you can really participate.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Very good. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to close in here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Sorry, adjourn. Yeah. Okay, Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
and Chase Gerwig, aye. And that concludes our meeting for April 26th. Thanks all.
Thank you very
Good night,
much.
everybody.
Night.